Hey guys, it's Tom here. Today we're going to learn about Interstate Love Song by the Stone Temple Pilots. A really cool song from the 90s grunge era that has a lot of guitar stuff going on in it. First thing is there's a slide guitar on the intro. We want to play along here by putting our slide on the string, touching it but not pushing down. And then we want to move from directly over one fret to directly over another fret. We're not trying to be behind the fret like we're playing regular notes. And we want a light touch. I even like to use my fingers, or I'll have a pick for later on. I might have a pick tucked somewhere in my hand. But I'm going to rest my hand right on the strings here and kind of guard all the strings except the one I need to play. And that's going to give me a nice clear note on my slide. A little rough there on that last note of the slide, but what happens there, we see that melody comes to an end. There we go, there's a nice one. And we play that E chord and it rings out. Now, because of the magic of overdubbing, this is all this guitar really does in the song. I saw Stone Temple Pilots live briefly before Scott Weiland passed away, and he played the slide and then just took it off. And not Scott Weiland, I should say, the DeLeo brothers are the guitar players there. But he played the slide intro, took the slide off and threw it into the crowd as a souvenir for whoever could catch it. And then he's just right on to playing the rest of the song. It's worth noting real quick that underneath that intro, there's the acoustic guitar, and it's playing the chords of what later turns out to be the chorus. We got C sharp minor 7, E, done in kind of a weird grip, A sus 2, we got G7 sus 4 to G sharp 7 sus 4 to just G sharp 7 to A. So those all in a row. And then here's where the slide comes to an end. So those two guitars kind of coincide there. We don't really see the slide or the acoustic guitar again much after the intro. The lead guitar is what the principal part of the song is done with. We can see that it plays a little bit here in the intro, kind of just backing along the chords that are being played more thoroughly by the acoustic guitar. And then it really kicks in here at bar 8. This is where the lead guitar takes over the song. And this song, we looked at them in the acoustic section a second ago. This song has crazy chords. We're going to have to give them some names and describe some context for some of these chords too. But let's take a look. After we've landed the E chord and all three guitars come to a stop, we get this nice hook. So right there, we have this iconic move that gets repeated throughout the song. What we want to do here, we want to grab the second fret on the B string and we want to push it with our middle finger, let's say, and the pointer finger on there to back up the strength so that we get a nice smooth bend up. We want to bend it a half step, so it should sound like the third fret. There it is, bending instead of going to 3. So we're going to go up and then return the bend, not return it so that we hear it go. We just want to bend up, lose the bend at the top, and then immediately play the regular fretted second fret. So we've got one on these dotted eighth notes, which is going to give us sort of a laid back feeling riff. And at the very end, this little melody where we're suggesting like we're kind of in an E, but we're going to hammer onto the sus4. That's what's being implied here, is that sus4 of E. Then we get this move here. We've gone from an E, and then we've jumped over to make this little structure here, which, if we want to think of this as moving triad shapes, these fretted notes 2, 2, and 1. Let's point on here on the tab. 2, 2, and 1. That's our E shape. That's a major shape. If I were to take the 2 chord of this key, which is F sharp minor, and then just cut it down to just those same 3 strings in its triad chord, we've got E to F sharp minor, back to E. And throughout this song, I noticed that the E string is kind of ringing all the time, and we're kind of implying the F sharp minor triad along with the open notes of the E chord. And we're doing this little jump up, da, 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 and back. We also see, like, this continues on. I actually didn't play the full phrase before. We get... And then there at the end, I even hesitated to grab that. This is one of those, this is the weird E chord we saw in the intro. And some of you may even be wondering, how the hell even is that an E? It doesn't look like anything. We want to think of this as, it's a caged chord. If we're making chords based on the caged system, where we're moving grips for C, A, G, E, and D around the neck, this chord by my red bar on screen is like I've got the capo on the 4th fret, and I'm making a C in front of it, and I'm going to leave the big string open because the chord we're making happens to be E, and it works out nice. You could even avoid barring it and just use your pointer finger like that, but the relationship in the song is that we play this C sharp minor 7 and then drop the E note in there to kind of change the quality of the chord back to a major chord. Now we lost the C sharp there. So, in the context of this move, we just are basically going with a low finish in bar 9 and then a high finish in bar 10. Then again, they swiftly run it back to the other E. So we're changing from E to E here. If we're looking for an easier way to approach this whole section, if, like, I know a lot of people are not going to be fans of having to play this E, we can just go E, F sharp, E, the whole friggin' time. It doesn't matter if we do that. We don't have to do the high one. We can just have, as long as it returns to E after we hit that brief F sharp. So with our hook move there, last thing to mention is we want to make sure, as usual with bends, that we're on our fingertip and we're using a finger to back it up, especially here because we have to hit the open string and hear that open E combined with these 3 different notes. And then we move the same structure 1 string deeper into the guitar. I like to just leave that high chord up there instead. When we get to the verse, this is the wild part of the song. These chords are knuckle busters, but they're really cool sounding, and there's a little bit of an interesting motif to look into for those who are wondering why these chords are in the song. So we start on a C sharp minor 7. We're doing a really classic kind of grunge strum pattern. We're just sort of with that not syncopation, but that dead note on the 2nd beat, and then syncopation in the 3rd beat. And we're essentially taking this strum pattern chromatically down the A string through a bunch of chords. We're going from C sharp, then in bar 15, we're changing to this bad boy here. This is a G sharp over C. got another wild chord after that. If you look down here at bar 16, this, we could call this a C sharp over B. We could also call it maybe a B diminished 9 or something like that, B9 diminished. And then we go from there, from our root note of B, now it becomes B flat with a minor 7 flat 5 chord. And this tab, I just noticed this earlier today. They just throw this one note in here for no reason, and it never comes back one more time in the tab later on. So I don't know, we could leave that out or put it in. It's kind of tricky to get it, but it's also, it's a B note. We could just go, which gets us the same result. We just open up the B string for that one shot. And finally, after all this movement down the A string, we're going to go to an A chord, an A sus2, and then we're back. Oh, we're just on E. So that's a weird little spot there. And even this, look at that, that E chord is still not the same as we saw earlier. They've left the B string open. So this tab seems to be taking a few liberties with the chord progression, but we can see it as we're running down the root note on the A string to arrive at this A. Now, the chord grips for this have all been strange looking. They're not your standard chords. They all seem to have some sort of extension on them. And I've pondered the theory on this song. And my thinking here is that, number one, these chords were created to fit this descending bass line. And we're just trying to find ones that can fit along with the key and sound pretty good as we move from spot to spot. But on top of that, we're also kind of tiptoeing around some elements of the key of E major that might make the theme of the song make no sense. The song is called Interstate Love Song, and it's about unresolved issues, clearly, is what the song is about. And one thing that we don't want to do in a song about unresolved issues is resolve. And if we're in the key of E, which we are, when we get to the B chord, that's going to make us want to resolve back to E. If we replaced this bar 16, this weird B with a regular B, it messes up the direction of the whole song. Let's hear it. Here's bar 15. That it's too bright there. We want to hear a resolve to E, and we don't want to have a resolve in our song about unresolved issues. So what the guitar players do here is they kind of turn the B chord into a dissonant thing. We've got it turned into a chord with a diminished fifth, if we think of it as a B chord, or we could think of it, like I said earlier, a C sharp over a B. Either way, we've kind of kneecapped the dominant function of the B chord to keep things moving down the bass line. We get another really tense chord, actually a second diminished chord in a row in bar 17. And finally we get to A, our 4 chord, but they elect to do it as a sus2, once again making the B note that's now included in this A chord, making the B note seem like its job is not to resolve in this song. So that's my little theory on why the verse is so strange and particular in this song. And they do a second verse in a row, same as the other verse. Finally, we get to the end of that verse, and we do the A sus2. Now we got the chorus, C sharp minor. Oh, look at that, I messed it up. We get the chorus, C sharp minor to E. This is more of a traditional chorus. not really going to use a B chord. And onwards from there. So let's talk about what's in that chorus. We had way more straightforward chords than in the verse, but still no B chord, so we didn't have that strong 5-chord back to the 1-chord resolution feeling. That's still absent from the song. So I think the theory checks out in that department. And what we do notice, the same chords we had under the intro, essentially C sharp minor to an E. They use an A sus2 here in the chorus. And then we had this guy here, this was also in the intro, G sharp 7 sus 4, and then we flatten that 4 back into a regular major third in the second half of that bar. See where the 6 becomes a 5 in the tab. And then we just round the chords back out. Bar 36 here, 37. We do this da 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 one more time, and then finally in bar 40 we're going to stop on that E. So basically just a chorus that starts on the minor side of the key and resolves back to the major. And besides that, I think we only have one other little thing that happens in the song that's any different, because notice we've had at the end of the verses, we always hit the A sus, and then we do our little hook da 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 on the E with that little F sharp move. There's another verse, there's another A, and there's our little hook with the E to the F sharp. Before the chorus, we hit the break riff again, which is nice to see. But when we get to there's the start of the bridge. When we get to verse 2, the end of verse 2, we have a held chord. Yeah, right here, bar 51. So we're coming, let's do verse 2. I can't remember the lyrics, but again, we hit the A sharp, or the A sus. And this just kind of goes with the lyrics. We get to the line here. I'm not a good singer if you saw the first video. But yeah, he doubles up that line and the band just follows him by repeating that held line before we move into the chorus. The chorus leads right to the hook, right to the outro, so the song is kind of tight in that regard. There's no guitar solo to speak of. The only other thing we want to mention here, while we have time, let me just check our time. Oh yeah, well we have time. We want to talk about how to change some of these chords that are in the verse. Big thing to do when we're working on chord changes is we want to look for the shortest path for any of our fingers to go. So if I've got C sharp minor 7 here, you can see that by the red bar on my screen, and then I need to change over here to this guy. We know that the pointer finger is on the A string. It's going to have to move back one step. We could also take note that my middle finger can stay on the B string, so those two can remain rooted. And then my move becomes sliding one fret back while dropping in these two fingers. So I'm going from C sharp minor 7 to G sharp over C. But those two fingers, my pointer and my middle, are not leaving their strings simply because they didn't have to. We want to look for that short path between the chords. The next one, this is a real pain in the butt chord change to make, because the most comfortable way to make the chord in bar 16, none of our fingers get to stay on the same string. So with this one, when we have a hard chord like this, we want to make sure that we plan the shape of the chord as we're on the way. So I've made this chord plenty of times because I know the song from way back in the day. And the big thing here is we want to look at this chord like we've got the two middle fingers are on the second fret, which happens to be the middle fret of this chord. So middle fingers in the middle. They're also outlining the deepest and the highest notes of the chord. So I can place my two middles like that, and then, I don't know, there's a lot of ways to describe what we're doing with these two fingers. I kind of think of them like I'm dropping a minor third into those two strings. I've got the F here, I've got the A flat there, that's a minor third, and this gives us this really interesting but clustered sounding chord. This is the one that we said earlier disrupts the normal function of the B chord by being so dissonant that it doesn't want to resolve the right way. From here to the next one, we do get something that can stay put. The ring finger is on the B string and can stay there, while the middle finger drops down one, and we turn the pointer finger into a bar. If we want to reach that fourth fret note there, I mean, the tab says it's out there. I kind of think it's just opening up the high string for a second, if it's even in there at all. That was news to me when I looked at the tab today. And yeah, then from that to an A sus2 is kind of easy stuff. A sus2 is one of those chords that if you can't figure out how to do that one, maybe we need to go back to the start. So speaking of that, we are now to the end. Thanks for watching my video, guys. I'm going to try and post one every day if I can. Let me know what worked, what didn't work, what you liked, and especially if you have requests for another song or the next video or something else to make on the channel, put them in the comments. Thanks.